and you start seeing things for exactly as they are, this particular aspect of conflict is literally just taking away all the paraphernalia that we might have, wrapped around this particular situation about what happened. When you just take all those wrappings and the trimmings out, you see it for what it actually is. The charge greatly diminishes. And the charge that diminishes is the charge that comes from holding on to the idea of a conflict. Now, it may be that when you actually step back and look at something, you realize that actually what you're looking at it wasn't very good what happened. The conflict energy, which is quite a gripping energy, it's like claws, that just dig into you. And the more you hold the conflicted perception in place, the deeper the claws dig into you. When you actually step away, it's a con, what happened? Step back, look at it. It may not feel nice, which also is a meaning that you gave to what happened. But the grip of the claw grip of the conflicted part, that definitely does dissipate. And you can now breathe and do something about it. So one of the things that I looked at, I like to look at things in terms of practical implementation. I like the perspective of it. It was a different perspective of how to look at conflict. And I thought, okay, the reality and the juiciness of the effectiveness of this understanding comes from its application. So I looked at my life, and there aren't many things that I'm conflicted about, really. But I mean, there was with what has been playing out in 2020, and I'm constantly faced by people feeling whether or not they should buy into certain what is termed as conspiracy theories, or certain points of view that seem very different to what the media is following. It does, and I do have this human form, so I do get disturbed by some aspects of it myself. And whether or not, where I get conflicted is whether or not I say directly to the person, just stop, come back to yourself, especially when they are so attached to a particular point of view that is completely taking over their life, their joy. If I just go and say, just stop it, get over it, it is not honoring of all the time and energy that they have put into researching a particular point of view and really holding that to be true. So there are times where I carry that conflicted piece within me. So when I applied that the conflict is a con, and what happens is when I and this is true of anyone going into this realm where they start allowing this conflicted energy to stay there for any length of time, there is a physiological reaction that you have. There is a mental anguish or upset that might be generated. Definitely an emotional response is there. It disconnects you from the spirit of you. So it's quite anti-spiritual. Absolutely has an impact on the social dynamics and creates an environment which starts to hold a little bit of that yucky feeling which can multiply and become stronger and stronger. So when I looked at it from the con aspect of conflict, really all that had happened was out of, the number of people that I interact with from around the world every week, there might have been about 20% of them that shared this particular point of view that they were so attached to and so believed to be true. That's all that happened, These people just shared their point of view, their belief to be true, and they really were disturbed by it and wanted to be released from it. That's all that happened. And I made it mean that they were so vested in it that I couldn't just go straight and burst their bubble, that would be dishonoring their worthiness. They already had given their power away to situations outside of them. So they were already not recognizing their own worthiness. And if I come in and burst their bubble in such a direct way, that would actually really dishonor it so much. So then I started, really all that was happening was, it was important for them to be brought into what is really going on. It was important for me to do what I do best, which is to arm them with their miracle lens and have them see a new perspective of what's really going on in the moment in a very factual way. But I gave meaning to what it would mean if I was to burst their bubble. So I, again, allowing a con to propagate, I got into a space where I was conning myself and I was disconnecting from what really happened. And it wasn't resolving anything, wasn't supporting them because they were staying in this situation, holding on to that point of view, feeling more and more disturbed for longer than they needed to. And if all that I was concerned about was bursting their bubble and them being dishonored in terms of their own worthiness, I could use the miracle lens on myself and use one or several of the filters that I know about in how I communicate to them. So it feels like they have a fresh perspective and they land. They remain standing in their strength, the center of gravity intact. So when I saw that, there was no need to continue holding on to a delay in that communication anymore. The interesting thing was that it all came from me just accepting, okay, number one perspective of conflict is it's a con. And that gave me all of this understanding. And in that instant, everything became exactly as it was playing out. I was able to see the truth in the matter, stand and operate from my truth. The second perspective when it comes to conflict, and this is all in the context of resolving it. The first step is really recognizing it. So the first two of the 7 are all about this, recognizing what conflict is. I have to say, when I first heard the con aspect, I got conflicted about that. Oh, how could it be as simple as that? And then I did do a deep dive into some other big areas in my life in the past, which are no longer are active, but I literally zoomed into a time where I felt very conflicted about certain situations and really looked at it from a con lens and just saw how it all played out. And it was quite a surprise to see how many years, how much life force, how much of what could have been a magical experience was depleted by not seeing the con part. Just literally flick out the con part, get to what really is, then just make a decision and a choice on how you manage a situation. The second aspect about recognizing the conflict really is about understanding the conflicted vibe. It's so much easier to understand and recognize conflict when you begin with yourself. There's more, there may be conflict playing out around us, and there is. You see it playing out at a level of nations, policies, beliefs. With so much of social media engagement, we have nations in Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, which are way bigger than any nation, state that has been created. And there is, in terms of a social dynamic, there is like a nation state type engagement that does play out. So we are in the midst of a whole variety of conflicts that are occurring around us. If we give it a label of conflict. And we can go out and try and fix things. The reality is that trying to fix a conflict, trying to resolve a conflict just keeps you trying. It becomes quite a lot of hard work, hardly delivering the impact that you wish to see or experience. So what if you just, allow things to occur and be the way they are meant to be, and really work with the conflicted part? The conflicted deep dive has you on the one side and has someone else, other institutions, policies, beliefs on the other side. So you'll find that if you were to look at, really dismantling the conflicted experiences that you may be witnessing, conflicted experiences that you may be impacted by, you'll find it's a little bit like you're here and there are so many layers, so many layers, so many layers, so many layers, so many layers. But it all begins with you. So it literally is like a reverse triangle which keeps expanding regeneratively. It was so interesting for me to observe this in myself, and certainly observe it as I was able to step back and look at what has been playing out. 2020 has been quite an amazing year in that way. We can step back and look at so many different issues that have played out in the world where, which have an impact on us, and we get conflicted about certain things. So here what I say is just notice when you get conflicted about one little thing The conflicted energy is a regenerative one. And it has its own, it's literally like the start of a nuclear reaction that just keeps multiplying. And it looks like, it is explosive. And it looks like an explosion outside of you until you realize you're the one that's actually, combusting here. Last year when we were doing some of our sessions, I think I might have referred to a particular situation that occurred in India. There's a Bollywood actor who supposedly committed suicide. And people were up in arms about it. There was some questions on whether it was suicide or whether it was something else. And literally, Indians from whatever strata of society, whatever status or intellect, it was like all of India went down the Sherlock Holmes characteristic suddenly started being embodied. Media was into it. People were into it. And it was so easy for people to take sides about this. WhatsApp groups were really thriving, buzzing with different perspectives, different evidences. It's very easy to get conflicted about it. But really, if you just look at it, 2020 energies, if you recall, were amplifying energies. So it only took one person to get conflicted about this. And that literally, it is like, if you look at a nuclear reaction, if you look at how that occurs, it's the particle of the nuclear reactor is so tiny, and it just gets activated in a certain way for that reaction to multiply, and it becomes a chain reaction. It was like that, and conflictedness, keeping conflictedness in place is like that. It is a mega multiplier, and it regenerates. In no time at all, it only took a few weeks for a country of 1.3 billion people to become hugely conflicted about this. From the issue itself to families being conflicted about, the addiction that people developed to watching TV and, having a particular point of view. And, there were arguments occurring within families. It's a very good example of how, when we allow the conflicted energy to continue, it self-propels, self-propagates, and it is as powerful as a nuclear chain reaction. It just blows up ultimately, and it takes a lot to contain it. So this brings me, so the first piece is to really understand where you feel conflicted. And here I say to people, I did this for myself, I like to do a nice lay of the land. This is like a spring clean. So once a week, do the conflicted lay of the land spring clean. You can play with it, play with having a different point of view. Having the conflicted vibe and coming from that space in presenting your different point of view is what makes everything go completely out of control. So, take stock. And remember, before looking at anyone outside of you or anything outside of you in the context of conflict, get yourself into a space where you understand, here you are, and all the different areas that have multiplied where you get conflicted. I often say to people that whatever it is that you're vibrating, the universe takes it and multiplies it. So if you're holding that conflicted perspective in you, the universe is already applying the multiplier effect. And something like conflict affects us physiologically. I'm not saying that you condone everything. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying stay in your center, focusing on what is, being a witness to what is occurring, noticing your own reaction, but not becoming consumed by it. Allowing the conflicted vibe to multiply literally consumes you. And when it starts consuming you, that would be occurring with other people as well. And in no time at all, the whole community or the town or a nation and even the world starts being consumed by all of these conflicted vibes. And the way to correct it is literally one person at a time. I mean, what is amazing for me was when I did this deep dive for myself, I saw that, how widespread this conflicted chain reaction was, how widespread it was just in my life. And all I had to do was to just zoom in on me, take me out of the conflicted space by seeing it's a con. The moment you see it's a con, it already breaks the reaction. And then by seeing it's a con, you actually start seeing what is the real, what really happened. You're out of the conflict. The chain reaction has stopped. And you take you out of it. The propulsion factor is gone. So what if each one of us did it for ourselves? And each one of you counts. If I was to paint a visualization, if any of you watch Star Trek, Dr. Spock, the Vulcan, he has this game with the tiny little energy sticks where they stack them over each other, and you just have to stack them exactly right, and you can just keep going. And to actually dismantle it, you remove one little piece, and the whole thing just dismantles. And that's what happens. Get the lay of the land. See how huge and widespread this conflicted environment that you've created for yourself is. Take yourself out by seeing that it's a con, and then stepping out and noticing, this is where I am. This is where I am conflicted, which is allowing all of this stuff to come at me, and then I'm contributing to it, so it's multiplying, so it's coming to you and it's going out from you. You take you out, the whole thing dismantles. The third perspective on conflict. Now we are getting into the resolve part. The thing to get here is to step away from fixing. So resolving a conflict is not about fixing anything. There really is nothing to fix. Because, given the discussion we've had about the con effect of a conflict, it's a perspective. So what are you going to do? You're going to fix a perspective? The conflicted energy is so rapid and multiplies so fast that you fix one person's perspective, it exists in so many others. So if you take on resolving a conflict, the act of resolving is initiated by choice, choosing a resolution. Choosing a resolution is more of an intention than it is doing the fixing stuff. So step away from being drawn to fixing a conflict. It is important to engage with the first two perspectives. So by the time you get to the third one, you actually have the lay of the land and you are in your center. Now, what I did for myself here was I looked at in those parts of my life where the conflict persisted or the conflictedness persisted, I found that I was always trying to fix something. And it may be trying to fix something within me or fix something in someone else. And the fixing, what it does is it gives energy to that there is something wrong. There is something out of integrity that needs to be fixed. And this strategy or tactics of fixing a conflict literally is the first step that you take onto a hamster wheel. And remember, it's a wheel. The moment you take the first step, the wheel moves. So you have to take the second step, and you have to take the step after, and you have to take the step after. And then all you're doing is fixing one step after another, and the wheel is in one place. And all you're doing is looks like you're using up a lot of energy. Things are not changing. Indians are becoming Sherlock Holmes. And even to this day, the final verdict or resolution has not been found. I mean, the intention of this, the energetic intention of what occurred with this particular Bollywood actor departing, his intention was to reveal the underbelly of a very glamorous industry, and an industry where glamour felt like the be all and end all, the movie industry, and the power industry, which is the politics of it. That was the intention, and that certainly played out. The intention was fulfilled, but he was gone, and it continues to be fulfilled as more and more and more veils are lifted of these demigods that Indians had made of their Bollywood stars, their movie stars. And remember, the intention of 2020 was humans and humanity really coming home to themselves. This is all a part of that, where people really got that, they are the ones who have the power to make someone really amazing. But what if they did that to themselves now? So just remember, trying to fix, even if it is fixing yourself, fixing your point of view in a particular point of conflict that you may be experiencing, you are taking that step forward and you are mounting a hamster wheel. And just know, when you think you're climbing and you're making progress, really all you're doing is taking the next step. And it's the wheel that is turning, keeping you in the same place, creating a perception that you're making progress as you feel, that the feeling of working really hard, but all you're doing is one step after another in the same place, and it's only the wheel that is turning. You are in your own spin. This was a very big reveal for me, this particular one. You try to fix anything, you're taking that step forward and stepping into a hamster wheel. And all that calls for is taking the next step and the next step and the next step, only to stay in the same place. And the person that gets exhausted, and if you keep going until, this is relentless. There is nothing stationary about being on a hamster wheel. You have to get off that wheel. You can't even destroy it because you'll just, collapse. You have to get off that wheel. Climbing those steps faster, there is no end to it. You just stay in the same place. This takes me to the fourth part. Really take the time between today and the next week when we go into the ninth pearl of wisdom. Just working with each one of these. All of us who are here, each one of us, we have such a huge, like mushroom effect of what has occurred in our environments as we have, propagated conflict in one or several areas of our life. That if each one of us works with these 7 perspectives of conflict, we would impact so much of the environment that makes up our world. There is nothing to fix. Even when you beat yourself up for having done something wrong, there is nothing to fix within you. The moment you take it on as something to fix, you step on that hamster wheel and it goes nowhere. Creates an illusion that you're working really hard at it and hardly delivering. The fourth perspective when it comes to conflict is to really do a deep dive into resolution. So this is where it's nothing to fix. The moment you start fixing, you step on a hamster wheel. The way to resolve a conflict is to make that choice of resolution. But what does resolution mean? Resolution is a combination of 2 pieces, resolve and a solution. So resolution actually is the implementation of your resolve. So the moment, this is the exciting part of stepping into resolution, the moment you make that choice of finding a resolution, you bring two pieces together, resolve and solution. So when it comes to conflict, it is not enough for you to say, I'm going to find a solution to this. And that's good, but it's not enough. Adopt the choice of resolution. Because what that does is it brings the gravitas of resolve to the solution. In making the choice of finding a resolution, you are acknowledging that there is a resolve that runs your life, that you stand for. There is something you are resolved about. It's a very powerful energy force. The resolve energy force is like in Sanskrit, they call it sankalp. Really creating that intent, having an intention and holding it like a stand that you take for something. And from that energy, that energy, a resolve energy, is another one of those self-propelling multiplied effect energies. Coming from that space and then finding a solution, that solution becomes one that fulfills an intention as opposed to providing a patchwork to fix something temporarily. But this fourth step is really about choosing resolution. Choosing resolution. And when you choose resolution, you reconnect to the resolve, and solutions start to emerge from there. So choosing resolution is this step. And it literally is, now I would say to people, knowing what I know about the 9-4-6 breath, get your mind, your heart, and your gut aligned on it. And all you do is you choose resolution, do the 9-4-6 breath, a set of 10. Before you embark on the fifth step. And then the fifth step is about owning your creativity. And this is where the moment you own your creativity, you actually honor you as the creator. We're now in that in-between space, going from resolving to evolving. The moment you choose creativity, you're honoring you as the creator. And just by choosing creativity, the consequence of that is the honoring of you as a creator. You actually embody the infinite possibilities that are visible to us every day, that demonstrate the prowess of our Creator. You just have to look at nature. You have to even you can just look at a leaf or a flower. That's what is possible by a creator energy. By choosing creativity, you honor yourself as the creator. Now you're ready to unleash that in brainstorming a whole variety of solutions. And before going out there, finding solutions was for issues that are outside of you. I say to everyone, go in and look at areas in your life, implement all of these 7 perspectives on that before stepping out. And it does not take that long. In a 20-minute slot, I was able to literally clean out my field almost completely. And it may take longer for others, and you don't have to do it in one go. 5 minutes on resolving and evolving from conflict. So choose creativity. And remember, the words are really important. I did not say choose yourself as the creator of your solutions. I said choose creativity. It's an action that you can sort of relate to. You've been creative at some part in your life. So even if you're not feeling that right now, you can choose creativity. Your mind goes, yeah, I understand that. This is an action that literally takes you off and away from the hamster wheel that you might have gotten onto. When you choose creativity, and all what you do is honor yourself as a creator, now you can get into coming up with a whole variety of solutions. Step 6 is all about evolving from it. And the evolution is propelled, fortunately for all of us, by being in the environment that we are in right now, where command and control has switched to collaborative co-creation of coexistence. So once you've chosen to be creative, when it comes to conflict, there are always multiple parties involved. Even if it is within yourself, it may be your higher self in you. There's always more than one. So in this particular step, you're really going into identifying your collaborators. So in the example that I used about myself, right at the beginning, where I was feeling conflicted about how to support or work with people who were so entrenched in a particular point of view and were very disturbed by it. I chose that I'm going to actually have them as my collaborator. I also chose Google as my collaborator. I chose 2 or 3 individuals who I knew have delved in these areas that were causing a lot of anguish. and had actually gotten a fuller perspective and were published about it. So like really getting a little bit scientific in terms of getting some evidential science, just in case I needed to dip into that. And it all seems like, my God, so much planning and thinking, when you just want to act. Well, what I found is that just taking that little bit of pause and putting a few things in place, because remember, we're dealing with an energy force that is self-propelling to the extent that it can become, it's like the nuclear reaction, chain reaction, self-propelling. So if you just take that moment and put in place certain pieces that stop that chain reaction, you still have the power of that propulsion with you. You achieve the end result much faster than you would otherwise have by just reacting and getting into doing straight away. This particular step, by taking the time to look at, well, who could be my collaborators, and really bringing them in, acknowledging them as a collaborator. You acknowledge your collaborators before you even go and make the ask of them. I find for using this approach, just interrupts the do race. So I stop being in a race. I'm doing very active, very proactive. But I'm constantly, what I am doing is feeling that pulse so that I know my intention is being fulfilled. And my overarching intention that propels me is humans and humanity expecting and accepting miracles as their norm. So even when I'm dealing with very, very specific, sometimes mundane, sometimes very materialistic situations, I do keeping my finger on that pulse of humans and humanity expecting and accepting miracles as their norm. I never take that off. Everything else I allow the doing to flow. And yes, there is this planning. So you've gotten by this time that there is a nuance level planning that I do. Yes. And because it's nuance, it doesn't need to take hours and hours or days and days. It only takes hours and hours and days when you keep that conflicted piece in your field. So you're constantly, hitting yourself with your own curveballs. So here you choose your collaborators, acknowledge your collaborators. As you acknowledge your collaborators, this is the interesting thing about acknowledging your collaborators. It is not a brainstorm. Yes, you begin with, okay, here are the list of people I know. You don't acknowledge all of them as your collaborators. You can have, a collection of people that you know. When you acknowledge your collaborators, you automatically get clear about what is it that you're going to ask them to collaborate on. You get clear about your ask. So if I was to say to you that this step is all about getting clear about your ask, it will feel overwhelming. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Oh, don't worry about that. Look, just acknowledge who your collaborators are. The act of acknowledging your collaborators feels like, oh yeah, easy, I can do it. But just in the thinking process, implementation process of acknowledging your collaborators, you get clear about your ask each time. Because remember, you have the answer to everything. Very often we don't acknowledge ourselves as our collaborator. And then you go into the seventh perspective, which is actually co-creation. When it comes to conflict, the resolution is not found by you alone. It just isn't. Because there are multiple parties that come together for a conflict to be in place. So a resolution of conflict comes from co-creation, and in the act of acknowledging your collaborators and then stepping into co-creation, the evolution of coexistence takes place. And you're on your surfboard and you are surfing that wave. Conflict, conflictedness, that was there, a very strong energy force actually becomes the wave that you surf to move forward in your resolve way faster than you would have done by yourself. The juice and the nutrients from ingesting the juice of conflict will come from the implementation of these 7 perspectives. And you don't have to wait for some mega conflict to arise. You can look at one area of your life and begin from there. It's all about really what we're doing with the 108 pearls. It's like I'm getting you to discover a nuance level muscle form, if you like, in one of the 6 aspects of full spectrum well-being. And you start toning that muscle. With that, I complete the 7 perspectives of conflict, resolving it and evolving from it. Over to you, Catherine.
Well, what you guys don't know is that I just privately messaged Mynoo and I'm like, okay, off the charts, brilliant. This really hit a home run with me. And I love the nuance and I love the brilliant perspective, Mynoo. It just gives us so much more inner work to do. And it's just absolutely mind-blowing how all of this comes to you and how you share it with us. So with that, we are right on time. If everyone would please share one word to close. I'm going to share my word, which is mind-blowing brilliance. Thank you so much, Mynoo. And we have harmony and love, heart sings. So please go ahead and type your word or words or sentence in the chat. And I'll read these for Mynoo. Co-creation rocks. Yes. So beautifully put. Thank you, Mynoo. Thanks. You have brought me to my center in all situations, Asha. Absolutely. Glorious. Brilliant. I love the one word, just extraordinary is another one I've got to throw in there. Cool, collaborative coexistence. My map to serenity. Intricate. What a profound journey. Thank you so much, Mynoo. Surfing the wave of co-creation. I think this hit home for a lot of us. I think we're going to look at conflict in a whole different perspective now, Mynoo. What a great way to create peace on the planet.
Yes, you count. Each one of us does. You know, let's transform one at a time, and it is an immediate multiplier effect. That's the exciting part of this.
Oh my gosh, I love this one. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Oh my God, I think that is my favorite word on the planet. Thank you, Kenneth.
Great.
That was brilliant. That pretty much says it all, for sure. I didn't even know how you would spell that, but somehow I figured that one out. I think you got it. Magnificent connections. Thanks so much.
Thank you all. And on Saturday, every Saturday at the moment, when I do the Beyond meditation at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, every Saturday I go into a new nuance of the 2021 energies. So join us then. Thank you all, and looking forward to sharing the 9th pearl next week. But please work with conflict. It doesn't take long. Just start toning this muscle of resolving and evolving from conflict. Thank you.
Thank you, Mynoo. And thank you to everyone. That was brilliant. Looking forward to seeing you guys next week.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.